I'm gonna go on a bit of a rant, more of a tangent, on a game called Fantasy Star Online New Genesis that I've played on my channel. And I posted about. I I'm not even a I'm not really a YouTuber at all, honestly. I just post random videos at time to time, from time to time, and my biggest problem with watching the community as a whole, I just sat back. Uh, from the most of the part, I just sat back in the community, and I haven't said anything because don't. I believe I don't really have much of a say since I'm not a big influencer, and I don't really take part in the community like that. But from what I've witnessed and seen, and what I've some videos I've watched of other YouTubers and bigger channels, they all when the people who come out with their not opinions, experience experiences, and they come out with their negative feedback, right? And then the community just shuts them down. This essentially makes it gives the developer or the creators leeway to mess up, make mistakes. But the problem is they're giving negative feedback because they want the game to be better. If you shut the people who are giving the negative feedback and tell them that the game's great and make lies, then the game will continue to stay in a state of mediocrity. And from what I've witnessed, which is why the game is dying. The game's player base is the lowest it's ever been. In fact, it's even lower than it was previously, a couple months ago, which is insane. Uh, and that is another issue. I feel and I see some design choices that I feel like Sega didn't go through with because it was designed by, I don't know, maybe not by a this could just be me. This is just my opinion. The way I feel, I could be completely wrong, but it may be that it's designed by a woman and not a man. I hope I am wrong. But this is just my opinion. For instance, the uh the armor choices, and the armors and the weapon designs, or or the tiering system, the way the tiering system works, the star system works. It feels like the game was designed to be able to use any star rarity weapon at any point in given time. If you didn't have enough, uh, you didn't make enough Meseta, or you didn't have this or premium, or didn't have access to the shop, you could use the lower tier star weapons and be able to compete with the people who have the higher tier star rarity weapons. Not to the not to the same extent, but still you could be able to actually compete and do the content. This is just my opinion again. Just want to emphasis that. Yeah, emphasis that. Um and just like it's really strange. I haven't been playing the game that long. I wasn't there in the early era, early when the game was in beta or alpha stage. I was not there if it even had an alpha. I actually don't know. See, um it's kind of frustrating to see the community dog each other, separate, not even dog, separate the people with the negative feedback talking about how the game is trash. You have to express your negative feedback or nothing is going to change. If you're passive about the negative feedback and just say this just to stay in the graces of a company that doesn't seem to be uh that doesn't seem to be changing the way they're handling, and in fact, inflicting further self harm, not self harm, punishments, something like that. Punishments, I guess, and self harm with the policy and agreements changing. Now, most people are just gonna come out and say, "Oh, if you don't like it, why don't you stop playing?" Uh, to that, I really don't have much of anything to say about, but I really don't, because that's like, it's just, it's weird to say that when you're losing your right, you're losing specific uh specific rights to certain things. Like, for instance, you don't own, you now don't own any of the what was it? One of the policy and agreements I saw, you no longer own any content that you make, or I forgot what it was exactly specifically. You guys can correct me on what piece it was in the policy that changed. I I didn't know this, so I didn't. That's the second time I checked the policies agreement, the policy and agreements that has changed. I don't know what exactly changed, but that's insane. Oh, you don't have the right to. Is it? I think you something about not having the right to refund or something like that. I don't exactly remember. So let me stop with that. But for me, it felt like the game. If they just rebranded this game and didn't call it PSO two New Genesis and just called it a different name under a different name, and made it more about like the housing system would have been fine if it was a different game entirely. The open world system would have been great, but they branded it as PSO 2, which really gave it bad rep and pretty much destroyed all of the integrity for the series as a whole. But but as a whole, the it's just really weird. The situation is really weird. The community, it feels like the community has given up, and for the most part they have. And they're too and the passiveness when and one another thing, the passiveness about not giving your full feedback, whether it's negative or positive, regardless of whether you get demoted or decentralized because of Sega. You need to be out there giving your full feedback, because the game, this usually happens when hang on, I lost my train of thought. Damn it. Don't devalue other people's opinions. You can't devalue other people's opinions of what is a good or bad game. And you can't pretend like the game is in a beautiful state, because it's really not. When you do that, you give whoever it is, your whatever game you're playing, you give them leeway to do you do give them leeway to do scummy things and get away with it. And or if they see that, they think they have all this leeway, they can do whatever they want and get away with it, because you've become essentially passive to what they are doing to the game, to what you're playing. Give constructive criticism that helps improve the game. Negative feedback is good. As long as it's not outright, oh, this game's dead, this game's garbage, it's trash, there's no recovering back. Constructive feedback, constructive criticism and with of how they can improve is very good. But even those, the community tears them down. The community, PSO New Genesis community, just tears them down, even when they're constructive, because they believe the game is in a perfect state. Fashion is not everything. And if it was, you guys, no one would be bored. And in fact, there'd be more people willing to play this game. But because there's nothing to do, the bosses, there's only three, four main event bosses that keep getting rehashed and just making more harder difficulty versions. And then you got missions you can't even do without specific augments. That shouldn't have even been a thought process within Sega. That shouldn't have even come to. They shouldn't even come to that conclusion. I don't know how they got to there, but that boss should have been something similar to Dark Phallus, with no Defi augments needed, none of that nonsense. It should have been the same thing, something similar. You could have just done when the event comes around, and in fact, allowing more variety between the bosses and stuff like that. Now, um, it's like there's so much. Gosh, it's just gonna sound like a very bad take on everything. Uh, don't get me wrong. I do enjoy customizing my characters, making them look awesome. That's awesome. But at the end of the day, if not the combat, if the main gameplay loop is just like a life simulator, then why am I playing it? It's not supposed to be a life simulator. It's supposed to be a game for enjoyment. This is why I feel if the game was rebranded and renamed as something else entirely, it probably wouldn't have gotten the same criticism it got as it received. The backlash wouldn't have been so bad because you could have called it a life simulator. It could have some combat there, here and there, and it could have bosses, and you could have done some event stuff. Of course, with the reduction, with the with what is it? With the reduction, with the what is it called? The market, this open the market, personal shop. Excuse me, personal shop being open to everyone instead of it being locked to premium users, which is one bad way to just see the market crash in the game entirely. Without the premium users, no one can sell anything. So if in this case, we're down to what roughly the player base is like 1,000 on Steam, 1,200, maybe less. So that's not even the PlayStation. That's not even PlayStation or yeah, that's not even PlayStation or Nintendo Switch in Japan, of course. So we're not even including those players. So the player base is actually probably in the like 2,000 on the daily, and the peak it hits is probably less than that. Or no, the peak it probably hits is probably more than that, but not by much. I checked the Steam numbers. I haven't checked them recently though, but I checked them a couple days ago. That was shocking. I thought there was more people playing the game, honestly. Only to find out there's only 1,000 left. Of course, that's concurrent players, but yeah, I don't even know how many people are playing on the PlayStation. So there's also that, and then there's PS5 as well. So yeah, is this on PS5? Well, I don't know. My thought process is just all over the place. Sorry about that. Um, I really believe this game could have been like If it was, this game could have been a lot better. The housing market, the housing system, should have been not even separated from the main hub area. It should have been a part of the world, which should have made it feel more lively, more living. If they didn't separate the hub to their own separate zones and made it instead a part of living on the island or off the area and expanded the region and made it bigger, and you could live here. You have pieces like zone areas where there's peace and stuff, and there's like hometowns and people are selling stuff to each other in markets. The system would have been interesting. Or for instance, take Alio City. They could have built. I was expecting something like that to be built on the world, not in its own separate area, and just separated from everything, from all the game around it, around basically separated from the open world game area. That would have been cool to see. The best example I have of this, uh, I haven't played much of any other games that I could remember, is Trove. Yes, it's a voxel game. You could check it out. You'll see what I'm talking about. The housing system. You could just there's plots of lands you throughout the entire area. You could just put your plot of land down and go about your business. And of course, you could. There's other plots areas like these gray bricks that you can put it down, but you have limited space. That's that game though. With Fantasy Star Online, New Genesis, they probably could have done something like that, or but with a bigger open area. Now the Alliance, I can understand that the home, the Alliance housing, I could understand that being in its own central area because they need to be big and they have to house a lot of stuff. But as for people's base homes, it'd have been cool to run into people living, just doing stuff, camping out in the actual open world and stuff, and fishing in the open world. Like PS, it could have actually been like a living, not even just like an interesting simulator game. and then there's another thing that's always bugged me. Why are combat zones a thing? I not strongly. I don't really believe in that there should be combat zones because this limits everything to one zone instead of the event happening where enemies keep raiding everywhere. They're just showing up everywhere trying to attack. There should be like an event that happens where all there's this crazy event where you have to run outside Alien and you have to defend Alien and stuff like that. Or there should be areas like the cities that you build, the little home areas, bases that you build in the open world. They're getting overrun or attacked by the dolls or the other enemies, and uh, one of the bosses shows up, not Dark Falls, but one of the other bosses, the lesser ones, not the lesser ones show up in like three of them at least, three of them, like depending on the area, like, and then how would you rate the zones? You have like you have from like you probably put like green, yellow, and red. You could do that or something like that. I don't know, but it'd just be so cool to see that instead of combat zones, you have like events that happen like you have events that happen every 2 hours, every hour or so. That way they're not too consistent, but they happen in different parts of the region. It's not going to be one area they're not just going to attack everywhere, but one area gets attacked within the hour, stuff like that, to keep it interesting. So yeah, that's my opinion with New Genesis. Hope you enjoyed my little rant. If not, that's fine.